The United States has implemented stringent export controls aimed at curbing China's access to critical technologies, particularly in the semiconductor and AI sectors. These measures, including blacklisting major Chinese firms like Huawei and SMIC, broadening the foreign direct product rule, and restricting the export of advanced semiconductor manufacturing tools, were intended to protect U.S. national security and maintain technological dominance. In response to U.S. policies, Beijing has intensified trade friction with Washington by imposing a ban on exporting certain key materials crucial for high-tech and defense applications. This move, seen as a response to the U.S. tightening technology-related sanctions on China, was announced by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce on Tuesday. Trade wars are not a recent development. They have been a part of global history for decades. Before we dive into the specifics of the current trade conflict, let's take a moment to explore the history and impact of earlier trade wars. The Opium Wars were two mid-19th century conflicts between China and Western powers, primarily Britain, centered on trade disputes over opium. These wars had profound effects on China's sovereignty and its interactions with foreign nations. In the 18th century, European demand for Chinese goods like silk, porcelain, and tea led to a trade imbalance with silver flowing into China. To counter this, the British East India Company began exporting opium from India to China, leading to widespread addiction and social issues. The Qing Dynasty, alarmed by the societal impact and the outflow of silver, banned opium in 1796 and 1800. Despite these bans, British merchants continued the trade illegally. In 1839, the Duang Emperor appointed Lin Zexu as a special commissioner to eradicate the opium trade. Lin confiscated and destroyed large quantities of opium, prompting Britain to send a naval expedition to China. The British forces, with superior military technology, defeated the Qing army, leading to the Treaty of Nanjing in 1842. This treaty ceded Hong Kong to Britain, opened 5 ports to British trade, and imposed indemnities on China. Tensions persisted, and in 1856, the Second Opium War erupted with France joining Britain against China. The conflict ended with the Treaty of Tientsin in 1858 and the Convention of Beijing in 1860. These agreements legalized the opium trade, opened additional ports to foreign trade, allowed foreign legations in Beijing, and granted foreign vessels access to China's interior waterways. The Opium Wars marked the beginning of the "century of humiliation" for China, leading to significant territorial concessions and the erosion of sovereignty. The treaties imposed after the wars are often referred to as unequal treaties due to their one-sided terms favoring Western powers. These events weakened the Qing dynasty and exposed China to increased foreign influence and internal strife. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 was a significant U.S. legislation that aimed to protect American businesses and farmers during the Great Depression by imposing high tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. Sponsored by Senator Reed Smoot and Representative Willis Hawley, the act raised average tariff rates to nearly 60%, among the highest in U.S. history. The enactment of Smoot-Hawley prompted swift retaliation from America's trading partners. Within 2 years, approximately 24 countries implemented their own tariffs, leading to a 65% reduction in global trade between 1929 and 1934. For instance, Canada, one of the U.S.'s largest trading partners, imposed tariffs on 16 products affecting about 30% of U.S. exports to Canada. The decline in international trade exacerbated the global economic downturn. U.S. imports decreased by 66% from $4.4 billion in 1929 to $1.5 billion in 1933, while exports fell by 61% from $5.4 billion to $2.1 billion. This contraction contributed to widespread unemployment and prolonged the effects of the Great Depression. Economists and historians widely view the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act as a policy failure that intensified the Great Depression. It serves as a cautionary example of how protectionist trade policies can lead to international retaliation and severe economic consequences. In the early 1960s, the United States and several European countries, notably France and West Germany, engaged in a trade dispute known as the Chicken War. This conflict arose when European nations imposed tariffs and price controls on imported U.S. chicken to protect their domestic poultry industries, which were struggling against the influx of affordable American poultry. These measures led to a significant decline in U.S. chicken exports. Exports to Europe faced challenges during President Lyndon B. Johnson's administration when, in 1964, a 25% tariff was enacted on several European imports, including light trucks, potato starch, dextrin, and brandy. This tariff, commonly referred to as the chicken tax, had a significant impact on the automotive industry, particularly affecting German manufacturers like Volkswagen, which had been exporting light trucks and vans to the U.S. The imposition of the chicken tax led to a sharp decline in imports of these vehicles, effectively shielding U.S. automakers from foreign competition in the light truck market. Over time, tariffs on potato starch, dextrin, and brandy were lifted, but the 25% tariff on light trucks remains in effect to this day. This enduring policy has had lasting consequences, including influencing foreign automakers to establish manufacturing plants within the United States to circumvent the tariff. In response to U.S. restrictions, China prioritized self-reliance by making substantial state investments in research and development. These investments have enabled firms like SMIC to achieve significant advancements in semiconductor manufacturing, along with driving domestic innovation in AI, quantum computing, and telecommunications. China has strengthened ties with non-U.S. technology providers and countries not fully aligned with American policies, such as Russia and some European and Asian nations. Through strategic partnerships and initiatives like the Belt and Road, China has diversified its supply chains and reduced reliance on U.S. technology. The extraterritorial scope of U.S. export controls has strained relationships with key allies and partners. Companies like ASML and TSMC have sought to reduce dependency on U.S. technologies to avoid being affected by restrictions. Major U.S. technology firms, including NVIDIA, AMD, and Lam Research, have reported significant revenue losses due to reduced access to the Chinese market. The U.S. export controls have curtailed economies of scale for American companies, potentially undermining their global competitiveness. Despite these restrictions, Chinese companies have launched advanced products showcasing technological sophistication. For example, Huawei's new AI chips and smartphones feature cutting-edge designs and manufacturing processes. Supported by state-led initiatives and international collaborations, China's indigenous innovation strategy has spurred remarkable progress across multiple industries. The trade war between the United States and China, initiated during President Trump's first term, marked a significant shift in their economic relationship. Beginning in 2018, the conflict was characterized by the imposition of tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods, disrupting trade flows and creating global market uncertainty. The Trump administration imposed tariffs under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, citing intellectual property theft, forced technology transfers, and unfair trade practices by China. The U.S. also pointed to its large trade deficit with China, which exceeded $375 billion in 2017, as evidence of these imbalances. The initial wave of tariffs in July 2018 targeted $34 billion worth of Chinese goods, including machinery, electronics, and industrial products. In response, China retaliated with tariffs on U.S. agricultural products like soybeans and pork. By the end of 2019, U.S. tariffs extended to $550 billion worth of Chinese imports, covering a wide range of consumer goods such as electronics, textiles, and toys, while China imposed tariffs on $185 billion worth of U.S. exports. These measures significantly increased costs for U.S. businesses reliant on imported goods, often passing the burden to consumers through higher prices for everyday items. China's retaliatory tariffs heavily impacted American farmers, especially soybean exporters, whose sales to China plummeted as Beijing turned to alternative suppliers like Brazil. Between 2018 and 2020, the U.S. government provided over $28 billion in aid to farmers to offset these losses. Economically, studies indicated that U.S. consumers and businesses bore much of the tariff costs. For instance, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York estimated in 2019 that tariffs cost the average American household $831 annually. Meanwhile, Chinese exports to the U.S. declined in key sectors such as machinery and electronics, prompting Beijing to diversify its export markets and increase domestic production. After 2 years of escalating tensions, the U.S. and China signed the Phase 1 trade deal in January 2020. Under the agreement, China committed to purchasing an additional $200 billion of U.S. goods and services over 2017 levels, with specific targets for manufactured goods, agriculture, and energy products. It also pledged to address intellectual property concerns and eliminate forced technology transfers. In return, the U.S. suspended planned tariff increases and reduced some existing tariffs. However, the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted trade flows, and by the end of 2021, China had fulfilled only 60% of its purchasing commitments. The deal left unresolved issues such as state subsidies and industrial policies. The trade war had broader effects on global supply chains, prompting U.S. companies to diversify sourcing to countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico. It also accelerated economic decoupling, with both nations striving to reduce interdependence. China pursued self-reliance in critical industries such as semiconductors, while the U.S. sought to bolster domestic production of strategic goods. Although the trade war did not fully achieve its goals, such as significantly reducing the trade deficit, it marked a turning point in US-China relations, highlighting deep strategic tensions that continue to shape bilateral policies and global economic dynamics. As newly elected president, Donald Trump vowed to impose stricter measures against China, doubling down on policies targeting Chinese products and critical technologies. In response, the Chinese government announced a complete ban on exporting critical materials to the U.S., including rare earth elements essential for electronics, electric vehicles, and advanced weaponry. The restrictions cover materials such as gallium, germanium, antimony, and superhard substances integral to industries like semiconductors, satellite technology, and night vision equipment. Additionally, China plans to impose stricter controls on graphite exports. As the dominant producer of over 70% of global rare earth materials, China has used its position as a strategic countermeasure. The ban on rare earth exports has sent shockwaves through U.S. manufacturers dependent on these materials. Industries such as aerospace, renewable energy, and defense are scrambling to find alternative sources with limited success. Prices for rare earth materials have surged, creating supply chain bottlenecks and threatening U.S. companies' competitiveness. China's retaliation underscores the risks of over-reliance on single-source suppliers, prompting U.S. allies to reconsider their positions. Some nations may align with the U.S., while others might seek closer ties with China to avoid being caught in the crossfire. This fragmentation of global trade networks could weaken U.S. influence and disrupt long-standing alliances. By leveraging its dominance in critical materials, China has demonstrated its ability to retaliate effectively against U.S. restrictions. The ban not only neutralizes the impact of new U.S. measures but also strengthens China's negotiating position. This move signals China's readiness to escalate economic confrontation, raising the stakes for future policy decisions. Trump's aggressive stance risks alienating segments of the business community and U.S. allies who depend on stable trade with China. Industries reliant on Chinese goods and materials face mounting costs, threatening domestic jobs and growth. The economic blowback could undermine the administration's promises of reviving U.S. manufacturing and protecting jobs, creating political challenges at home. President-elect Donald Trump issued a stern warning to the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, against efforts to establish a new currency that could challenge the U.S. dollar's global dominance. He threatened to impose 100% tariffs on these countries if they proceeded with such plans, emphasizing that replacing the dollar would result in significant economic repercussions, including restricted access to the U.S. market. China, as a leading BRICS member, has been actively promoting the internationalization of the Chinese yuan to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollar. This strategy includes encouraging yuan use in global trade and investment, establishing currency swap agreements, and launching yuan-denominated financial instruments. Notably, China has urged Middle Eastern oil suppliers to accept the yuan for oil transactions. China has implemented policies to facilitate the use of the yuan in cross-border trade as part of its pursuit of financial independence from US-based institutions. The country has played a pivotal role in BRICS initiatives to create alternative financial systems. A key development is the establishment of the New Development Bank, NDB, headquartered in Shanghai, which aims to provide resources for infrastructure and sustainable development projects in BRICS and other emerging economies. Additionally, China has promoted the use of local currencies in trade among BRICS nations, reducing dependence on the US dollar and mitigating exposure to currency fluctuations and geopolitical risks. These efforts align with China's broader strategy to enhance the yuan's role in the global financial system and build financial infrastructures that operate independently of Western-dominated institutions. However, the U.S. government views these moves as potential threats to dollar supremacy and has signaled a willingness to counteract them through economic measures such as tariffs. The evolving dynamics between the U.S. and BRICS countries highlight the complex interplay of economic policies and geopolitical strategies in the global economy. Notably, Russia has intensified its de-dollarization strategy, increasing the use of the ruble and other non-dollar currencies in trade with China and other BRICS nations. Russia has also strongly advocated for creating alternative financial systems to reduce reliance on US-led global financial infrastructure. In December 2023, Iran and Russia finalized an agreement to conduct bilateral trade using their national currencies, the Iranian rial and the Russian ruble, instead of the US dollar. This agreement strengthens economic ties between the two nations and reduces reliance on the dollar, particularly in light of extensive U.S. sanctions on both countries. The agreement, solidified during a meeting between the central bank governors of Iran and Russia, facilitates non-SWIFT interbank systems and establishes bilateral brokerage relations. This enables banks and businesses in both countries to process transactions directly in their local currencies. This move is part of a broader trend among nations to de-dollarize their economies by promoting local currencies in international trade. For Iran and Russia, this strategy is particularly significant as it mitigates the impact of sanctions and enhances financial sovereignty. Alongside this bilateral agreement, Iran signed a free trade agreement with the Eurasian Economic Union (EAEU) on December 25, 2023. The agreement eliminates customs duties on 90% of goods traded between Iran and EAEU member states, further integrating Iran into regional economic frameworks and reducing dependence on Western financial systems. India is also exploring the use of local currencies in trade to mitigate exposure to dollar fluctuations. The Reserve Bank of India has implemented mechanisms to facilitate international trade settlements in the Indian rupee, aiming to promote its use in global transactions. Similarly, South Africa supports the BRICS initiative to use local currencies in trade and investment and is engaged in discussions to establish payment systems that reduce dependence on the dollar, aligning with the broader BRICS strategy to enhance financial sovereignty. Thank you for watching this video. We sincerely appreciate your time. If our content resonated with you or sparked inspiration, please consider liking this video and subscribing to stay connected with our community. Your support holds immense value for us. Feel free to watch another video on our channel, now displayed on your screen.